Banzan said to his disciples, "In the three worlds there is no Dharma. Where could you find the mind?" Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Kōan Series. In the Kōan Series, we will read and discuss famous koans used by real Buddhist monks from such sources as the Blue Cliff Record, the Gateless Gate, the Treasury of the True Dharma Eye, and many others. As you will remember, over-intellectualizing koans is completely anathema to how koans are used and ought to be used in real Buddhist practice, so keep that disclaimer in mind. However, I am here to give some extra context and meaning to some of these koans so that you might see them in a new light and gain some new or deeper meaning from them than you did before. I hope you enjoy. Today's case is number 37 of the Blue Cliff Record, known as Banzan's Three Worlds No Dharma, and it comes to us from the Katsuki Sekida translation of the Blue Cliff Record. We have mainly been reading cases out of the Gateless Gate, but today I thought we would look into another source and another translator. If you remember, the Blue Cliff Record is a compilation of Chan Buddhist koans that dates back to 1125 in Song Dynasty China. It is known in Chinese as the Biyan Lu, and in Japanese as the Hekigan Roku, and in Korean as the Byokgam Rok, and it derives its name from the Blue Cliff Cloister, or the Biyan Yuan, the temple in Hunan from which Chan master Yuan Wu Kachin, known in Japanese as Engo, wrote his commentaries on the cases. This one is given by Banzan, who lived from 720 to 814 CE. He was a disciple of Baso, who you will remember from the koans This Mind is Buddha and No Mind, No Buddha. One of the cool things about getting into koans is that over time, you start to get a picture of the lineages and the family trees of Chinese Chan Buddhism and who is who. We know Joshu is the raunchy and sardonic one, Baso is the sort of esoteric yet faithful one, Gute is the one-finger Dharma one, etc. For the purposes of this koan, we will be examining three concepts: three worlds doctrine, emptiness, and the mind in Chan and Zen Buddhism. We have discussed these in the past on this series and on the regular show, so you can always refer to those episodes for further reference as well. Since these come up so frequently, there are far too many episodes to list and link individually, so I will be building on the concepts and the conversations that I've had in those episodes here. These three are certainly not the only concepts at play in this koan, but I think that they will give you a good start when it comes to getting the necessary context for why Banzan might say something like this. Let's begin with three worlds doctrine. In Buddhism, the three worlds can actually refer to more than one idea, which makes this a little bit of a complicated analysis, but the conclusions that we come to about the koan, as you will see, will be more or less the same. The oldest usage of this phrase comes from ancient Indian philosophy. The concept is known in Sanskrit as the Trilokya. Tri means three, Lokya means realms or worlds or spheres. This concept was part of Hindu and Jain cosmology and was inherited into Buddhism's cosmology very early on in its development, like many other concepts. These three realms are three ways to divide up all of samsara, and there are sub-realms in each one that can be reached in one's rebirth by a variety of means. The first of the three realms is the Kama Loka, the realm of desire, not to be mistaken with the Karma Loka. The second is the Rupa Loka, the realm of form, and the final one is the Arupa Loka, the realm of formlessness. The Kama Loka, the realm of desire, is the world in which the six realms of transmigration are located. So, humans, animals, pretas, asuras, devas, and hell dwellers all live in the realm of desire. This realm is so named because the beings in it are subjected to desire and, as a result, dukkha. It is a very dog-eat-dog realm where survival instincts and base passions control our behavior and our everyday experience. That is where Buddhas most commonly arise to save sentient beings. And, short of attaining parinirvana, it is the first place that practitioners seek to leave by means of their practice and study. Eliminate desire and you will have freed yourself from the realm of desire. Keep this question in mind as we continue. Why would Banzan say that the realm in which Buddhas most commonly arise to save sentient beings by teaching them the Dharma has no Dharma? Fascinating. It must have something to do with our next concept, which is emptiness. Before we get there, though, we should discuss the Rupa Loka, the realm of forms. This is the material world as it is in the absence of desire. This is where devas and highly advanced jhana meditators live. We shouldn't get too lost in the sauce with the name of the realm being the realm of form. It is not at all similar to Plato's world of the forms, and it doesn't refer to or have a lot to do with speaking to how Buddhism views the physical world. This is a place for gods and highly advanced practitioners who still have physical bodies. They have freed themselves from desire. They have freed themselves from the afflictions and passions that plague the realm of desire, but they still have physical bodies because they have karma, or they lack the attainment necessary to shed their physical forms. The third realm is the realm of the formless. This is where the most advanced practitioners and the highest level gods end up through their moral practices and formlessness meditation. They have gone far enough to shed their physical forms, but they continue to arise in samsara because they still have an attachment to self, or they still have some karma to work through before achieving nirvana. This is the best possible place to land in samsara. These two realms do not commonly have Buddhas and gathered sanghas. They may have members of the sangha in the form of highly advanced practitioners, and according to many, but not to Banzan, they have Dharma. Or else, what would the beings there be practicing? We will find out when we get further into discussing this koan. Before we continue on to emptiness, I also want to mention another usage of the phrase three worlds. In later Mahayana, particularly in Tiantai or Tendai, where the Perfection of Wisdom sutras took off in popularity, we see a usage of the phrase three realms that refers to something other than the above realms. In the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, we see a usage of three realms that refers to three aspects of living existence. These aspects are spoken of in terms of realms because they are shared aspects in which different things happen. The three realms are the realm of the five aggregates, the realm of living beings, and the realm of the environment. The realm of the five aggregates is the realm in which living beings continue to arise according to the five aggregates and reincarnation doctrine that we're all very familiar with. The realm of living beings is the aspect of existence in which temporary union of the five aggregates can be called a sentient being. This is the realm of all sentient beings everywhere. The realm of the environment speaks to the field of activity of sentient beings. It's nothing complicated. It is simply where we all live and practice. I personally think that Banzan is referring to the realms of desire, form, and formlessness when he says the three worlds. And the reason I feel that way is that I think that the world of aggregates, living beings, and environment are all subsumed under the realm of desire. However, I think an equally good argument can be made that Banzan is referring to the world of aggregates, living beings, and environment. That usage of the phrase was coming into use around the time that Banzan was active, and Shan, Tiantai, and even Huayan and other schools shared bases of knowledge, jargon terminology, and communication channels among themselves, even though we think of them as these siloed and separated sects. So Banzan says there is no Dharma in the three realms, one of which is the most common place where a Buddha is said to arise. How does that work? Let's talk about emptiness. We have talked about emptiness on the show a lot. Not to get too esoteric about it, but sometimes I think that when we talk about Mahayana, all we ever talk about is emptiness. It is for good reason, of course. Emptiness is the most important and prevalent doctrine in all of Mahayana Buddhism. In the context of this koan, we can actually look to texts such as the Heart Sutra and other Perfection of Wisdom literature to understand why Banzan would say there is no Dharma in the three realms. We've talked about how reaching a thorough understanding of emptiness is the object of the Mahayana Dharma. We can practice and study all we want, but without emptiness as the foundation, there can be no higher realization. Emptiness is suchness, and suchness is the code to crack in Mahayana Buddhism. In accordance with seeking a thorough understanding of emptiness, there is a perspective of looking at the capital D Dharma that regards it as being entirely empty. It is commonly thought that the practitioners can get too attached to the idea of a Buddha and his teaching as being capital T true, and as existing as incontrovertible laws of the world. This is a correct view to a certain extent, but the idea is that if people objectivize Dharma too much, then they can unwillingly slip into a deluded view that the Dharma exists in such a way that violates the rule of impermanence. When we come to have attachments and desires around the Dharma and around the Buddha, especially with these things as the objects of those desires and attachments, then we can end up in real trouble. For example, desiring enlightenment or being too attached to the Buddha are no ways to attain enlightenment and Buddhahood. We have to remember that the Buddha, the presentation of the Dharma, the structure and the nature of the Dharma, these are all empty of inherent, unchanging, and substantial existence and nature. They are all skillful means, and they refer to a thing, but they are not the thing itself. They are sources and objects of ideas and notions and conceptions we can build up in our minds. And Buddhist practice is to overcome our ideas, notions, and conceptions about things. So, in that way, there is no such thing as the Buddha who can take your hand and pull you along. There is no such thing as a capital D Dharma which is passively true for you without you having to cultivate faith or practice. The Dharma is a constructed truth, and that is not to say that it is contrived in the mind of the Buddha, nor is it to say that it's only true because people believe in it. It is to say that the sermons, which we all call the Dharma, are constructed of language, concepts, and ideas, and all things we perceive and experience are constructions of the mind. To put it all in more concrete terms, there is a distinction, a separation between a reference and a referent. Language is constructed of references. All words that we speak, write down, hear, or anything like that are used to refer to an idea. They refer to a thing. They refer to a place, a person, a name, an activity, what have you. Every individual thing in reality is a referent. In other words, without getting too confusing about it, all of reality is constructed of referents, a plurality of the word referent. We are cautioned here not to get too involved with references, because references are not the thing itself. They are references to the thing itself. References are by nature incomplete and also characterized by emptiness. The reason that they are incomplete is because we are limited by our senses, and our senses are subject to our karma, our desire, our conceptions, our notions, our beliefs, and so they paint us an incomplete picture of the thing that they refer to. Consider the word water. Whenever I say the word water, we automatically think of that substance which is composed of two hydrogens and an oxygen. We think of the stuff of life. We think of something that satiates our thirst. We think of something that we need to stay alive, and we think of something that can be potentially very beautiful and very powerful. However, that is a very limited view of what water can be. Not only can water also be steam or vapor, and thus not give us any life or any satiety of thirst in any way, but for other sentient beings, water can also be something terrible. It can be the opposite of the stuff of life. It can be some kind of poison. It can be like blood. It can be like fire. It can burn the throat as it goes down. Whenever we encounter water, we have a particular sensory experience, and then we judge that experience as being good, bad, or neutral. And then according to that judgment, we create beliefs about the nature of water itself, which are always going to be mistaken and incomplete. And then, whenever we have these beliefs, we start to construct behaviors around those beliefs, such as, I want to seek out water or I want to avoid water. All of these behaviors, all of these habits are karmic, and they are reinforcing the conceptions and the experiences that constitute them. That is how we understand the cycle of cognition in Buddhism. It's self-serving and it is inadequate. It's predicated on the idea of there being a capital S self, and all it ever does is make the cycle itself worse. In other words, the more conceptions, beliefs, and patterns of behavior that we construct around something, whether it's to seek something out or to avoid something, the worse our karma gets and the more diluted about reality that we get. All of this stuff must be completely cleared out. Without first doing that, there is no hope of actually perceiving the world exactly as it is according to its suchness. When it comes to the referent itself, the thing that the words and the language refers to whenever we speak or write, that too is also characterized by emptiness. Thinking of the referent of the word water, water itself is impermanent. Water itself does not actually exist except as a construction of our minds. We'll get more into this whenever we speak about the mind, but we should mention that, for one thing, water is only a temporary aggregation of hydrogen and oxygen atoms. Those can break apart, they can reconfigure, they can create more compounds like hydrogen peroxide, or they can deconstruct into ions of hydrogen or of hydroxide. That which we call water and the object that we perceive as the referent of the word water, all of that is marked by emptiness, and it's all a construction of the mind based from an ignorant or a deluded place that inadequately captures the reality of what a thing is. This is a very important concept in Buddhism, and we'll be repeating it throughout this episode, but also throughout the rest of the show. Since we have been speaking of the mind, we should discuss the mind in the context of Chan and Zen Buddhism. As we've discussed before, Chan draws significantly on the Yogacara formulation of mind. Here we should remember the cycle of Alaya Vijnana that we discussed before. For a refresher on that cycle, see our episodes on the Lankavatara Sutra, as well as episode 19, What is Yogacara? The Alaya Vijnana is the storehouse consciousness, and this is the component of living beings that is thought to function in the process of what I call cognition experience, with a hyphen in the middle. It also functions in karma and reincarnation. In short, the Alaya Vijnana is the soil of our conscious everyday experience, and the experiences and actions are the seeds and or the fruits that come from or go into that soil. When we experience a thing, our experience of that thing is determined and controlled by the perfuming action of the Alaya Vijnana. Based on our past experiences and karma, that experience can be good, bad, or neutral. That experience then becomes a seed for a future experience, both in us and in others, which will then also be good, bad, or neutral. This is not to say that all life is a simulation or a projection of our minds onto our consciousness where there's no actual reality and we're just a brain in a jar. Things do happen in reality outside of our perception. However, how we perceive that experience is relative to our karma, our conceptions, and our mental activities. Like begets like. So bad seeds beget bad fruits, neutral begets neutral, and good begets good. The path of Buddhist practice, then, is regarded as shifting momentum away from bad seeds and fruits toward good seeds and fruits. Then, eventually, you want to stop undergoing this seeding, fruiting process altogether, emptying out the Alaya Vijnana, and achieving nirvana without remainder. According to that scheme, there is a sharp distinction between our subjective experiences and actual events in reality, like we've been discussing so far. In other words, X event is what it is, but our karma, delusions, ignorance, and whatever else can cause us to construct maladaptive, inadequate, incomplete notions about X event. These can take the form of judgments according to whether something was sensually pleasant or unpleasant. They can take the form of imposed systems and structures and distinctions that are arbitrary and self-serving, or they can take the form of total misunderstandings and misinterpretations of the thing. When we experience X event and make judgments about pleasure and pain, we are sowing the roots of desire and attachments, and that leads directly to dukkha. We want to avoid that as much as possible. An example of this is judging fire to be painful, and thus a bad thing, or judging an image to be unpleasant, and thus the thing that the image represents to be bad. When we experience the world and impose categorical and calculative thinking onto it, we're thought to be spinning the wheels of our cognition and not breaking free of the Alaya Vijnana scheme. We have used lots of examples on this show for this. When I look at a cup, the idea of the cup and the real actual cup in front of me are very different. The idea of a cup is rigid, determined by function, and dependent on experience and notions about the world, and the cup itself is far more than what is captured by the idea of a cup. It is ceramic, it is everything and everyone who participated in making it and getting it to me, and it is the dirt that it came from and will one day return to, all at once, and all in this one instant. Thus the idea of a cup is arbitrary and limited when held up to an actual cup. Keep these concepts in mind as we continue. They're very important here, and they will go towards explaining this koan. So, let's get back to the case at hand. Why would Banzan say there is no Dharma? He is likely referring to the imposed system of distinctions and categories that are potentially arbitrary, but definitely self-serving. Buddhism is a religion of lists. It has lists of lists. The 2 truths, the 4 noble truths, the 5 aggregates, the 6 sense bases, the 7 factors of enlightenment, the Eightfold Path. On and on and on it goes. The reason we have all of these lists is because we have, for the sake of expediency, imposed categories, structures, and notions onto reality, and onto the Dharma itself. It helps us understand it and break it down. Furthermore, the Buddha himself states in the Lotus Sutra, and in other sutras, that he only arises in the world and preaches the Dharma as a skillful means, suited to the capacity of all individuals involved. His arising in the form he did and preaching the Dharma the way he did was an experience determined by our karma and our Alaya Vijnanas. As a result, it's possible to get caught up in all of the notions and constructions around the experience of encountering the Buddha and no longer being connected to the real thing out there that the word Dharma refers to. In other words, the Dharma is beyond the veil of all of our conceptions, all of our structures, all of our interpretations, all of our categories, and all of our words about it. One of these distinctions, these notions, these conceptions about the world is, drumroll please, the three worlds. Nowhere in that cosmology, nowhere in that system of thinking about the Dharma or about the world will you find the real thing we have decided to call Dharma. You have to leave all of those conceptions, all of those notions, all of those delusions behind in order to find anything that is even close to the referent of the word Dharma. We have to practice to get past the veils that our notions and cognitions create, and we have to leave them behind. After stating in the three worlds there is no Dharma, Banzan asks, where could you find the mind? The mind, too, is a conception, a notion, an arbitrary category imposed on the world with little relationship to any such referent, any such real thing. We talk about it as being the place where all understanding and perception and karmic determination occurs, but remember the doctrine of non-self. There is no permanent and unchanging self or component of self for something like a mind to be rooted to. So, how can there be anything permanent and unchanging that we can call a mind? It's potentially easy to get too lost in the Yogacara sauce and start to think that the Alaya Vijnana is a soul. It's not. It is a temporarily arising thing with the function that I mentioned, and it can be left behind. If you go trying to pin down this thing called mind that functions in the way I've described, you won't find it. There is no real-world referent that you can grab onto and show to me while you point at it and say, this is the mind. It is like imaginary numbers or time in mathematics. They are constructed in order to make the rest of the math look right, and so too is the mind. We can't grab onto anything in real life called time, nor can we play catch with imaginary numbers. These things only exist in our minds and in our language, which is just sort of another construct of our minds anyways. Could it not also be true that the mind itself only exists in our minds and in our language? Banzan would say so. For further support of my interpretation, I'll go back to the case itself. This koan actually has a longer form that comes to us from the record of a lecture Banzan was giving to his disciples. It reads, quote, "You have to look for it yourselves. No one can do it for you. In the three worlds, there is no Dharma. Where could you find the mind? The four elements are originally empty. Where does the Buddha abide? The plow does not move, and it says nothing, yet it reveals itself immediately, and there is nothing else." Unquote. Beginning with the first part, you have to look for it yourselves, no one can do it for you. That part refers to the fact that the veils of cognitions, notions, and constructions won't simply fall away on their own. One must begin by interrogating those constructions, then interrogating how they came to be, and then finally deconstructing them. Since they're constructed on an individual level for the most part, this is a self-originating and self-motivated endeavor. No Buddha, no teacher, and no text can undo all of your notions for you. They can tell you that you have to, and they can encourage you and give you guidance, but you have to take the step yourself. Next, the four elements are originally empty. Where does the Buddha abide? This portion speaks to exactly what I've been saying so far. All is subject to emptiness, even our conception of the Buddha himself. Next, the plow does not move and it says nothing, yet it reveals itself immediately. This is about suchness. The plow is a metaphor for the Dharma itself. The Dharma is not sentient, and thus makes no action of its own accord. It does not do anything. It does not punish people with bad karma and reward those with good karma. Yet, although it does not do anything, it reveals itself in its entirety immediately once the veil of cognitions and notions and ideas are left behind. Banzan must be a sudden enlightenment kind of guy instead of a gradual enlightenment kind of guy, because he says that you don't realize it piecemeal over time in small experiences of satori. You actually experience it, or otherwise it is revealed to you all at one time after you have been practicing to scrub clean the mirror of mind. Just as a side note, the mirror of mind and scrubbing it clean is a metaphor that's commonly used in Zen Buddhism in Japan and in China, and we will be discussing that in the future whenever we read the Platform Sutra, another very important sutra in Zen Buddhism. Nevertheless, Banzan is again saying that once the constructions of mind are left behind, the actual thing to which the word Dharma refers reveals itself immediately, and when it does, as Banzan says, there is nothing else. I hope you enjoyed this week's Koan. In the three worlds, there is no Dharma. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. My name is Nick Bright, scholar of East Asian religions and the voice of Hearer.
And I'm Docs, editor, question asker, and voice of Hermit.
And this has been Bright on Buddhism. Thank you for listening. If you like our podcast, or if you have any questions that you'd like us to discuss, we'd love to hear from you. Please consider leaving a comment, review, or subscribing. You can also reach us by email at bright.on.buddhism@gmail.com. As always, citations and resources for this episode can be found in the show notes. Thank you.